warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rosmalela Sidik from the School of Postgraduate BIPA Study Program, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. At this time, we want to share the result of study implementation entitled Translanguaging in BIPA Learning for Japanese Expatriates. This research is dropped by the Rapid of Indonesian's Language Program, named as BIPA. Since 2015, Teaching BIPA is a program of Indonesia's government through the Ministry of Education and Culture in spreading Indonesian to assist diplomacy through language. Until 2021, BIPA has been taught in 465 institutions in 42 countries. Meanwhile, BIPA development in the countries are influenced by expatriates who working in Indonesia based on Ministry of Labor data. Japanese expatriate at second rank or 10% from all foreign workers in Indonesia after Chinese. Based on previous research, teaching Indonesia with a communicative approach is very popular for teach a second language program in Indonesia. But based on Aoyama's research in 2020, Japanese learners have different characteristics when they learn a second language. In MEXT research at EFL teaching program for Japanese high school students, communicative approach is no longer relevant for use for Japanese learners. Japanese learners are often influenced by first language when they learn a second language. This is due to the language interference as the pronunciation and language structure. To solve this problem, Japanese expatriates also require the teacher must master their first language to understand their language interference when they learn a second language. Those expatriates also require Japanese language qualification for teachers who will teach Indonesian to them. Therefore, teaching Indonesian for Japanese expatriates require a new teaching paradigm or support this factor. This research will be described how the use of translanguaging in learning Indonesia for Japanese expatriates and see the benefits of it. From previous research that translanguaging helps develop skill in a weaker language, in this case a second language, because students have to do more challenging assignment in the both language. As we know, Japanese learners have no knowledge of their first language, and it will be easier to learn second language if they can carry out a comparative analysis during learning, and this can only be done by bilingual teaching. Translanguaging also aims to add the content of language competence in school by using search of the entire linguistic repertoire of the learning assignment in both languages. This condition also happened in Indonesian teaching program for Japanese. They always use two resources in Japanese and Indonesian resource. Translanguaging practice also benefited the student cognitively, socially, and psychologically. However, the advantage offered by the practice of translanguaging, there are also challenges that must be addressed. Translanguaging in use need to examine how students in the first language use through sidetracking conducts of their second language development. This research is a case study research on expatriate Japanese BIPA students who work in multinational companies. Learning is carried out for 15 meetings with the duration 120 minutes. Data collection was done by individual interviews, observation, and document record analysis. Data analysis will be presented by description qualitative. By the observation, were made during 15th class meeting with the use of translanguaging, which combined the natural use of first language and the second language initiated by teacher. The first to fifth meeting, translanguaging used to build vocabulary knowledge and grammar. So translanguaging practice is used Japanese language for more than 50% in the class initiated by teacher and student discussion. On the next 6 to 10 meeting, the only first language is only used for instruction, asking question, and free discussion, which is the first language used less than before. The 10th to 15th meeting, translanguaging used to build and deliver idea in the discussion by translation. In this term, teachers only use first language when students ask help without restriction on the use of first language and the second language during discussion. This practice was carried out based on William theories when the teaching a second language at Wells. The translation required cues to trigger language change, and this must be done by the teacher as a trigger. Besides that, the practice of translanguaging often occurs when asking questions and when students not understanding the content. This is confirmed previous research delivered by Gracia and Wei at Emilia. The translanguaging used to ask questions occurred more frequently compared with other strategies. In other recording, there is a conversation that combines two languages naturally. This is same with what Razak explained in previous research, that translanguaging can be seen in the absence of traditional movement back and forth between the language system, but instead become a single language unit as a means of communication. The analysis of learning outcomes document there were writing error in several sentences. This was due to the limitation of written language. This was also found in William previous research in document analysis on learning outcomes are found error in sentence production due to limited vocabulary collection and writing. This is thought to be less than optimal if it is connected with the theory of the use translanguaging, which focuses on pedagogical practices, where during language learning, students are enabled to change language to receptive to productive purposes. In the individual interviews, translanguaging helped understanding vocabulary in early learning stage to be faster and more effective to use of time for study, because they can use learning material for their first language. As William said, translanguaging can imply more resources, use of textbook and audiovisual material. Students also felt that translanguaging in sentence production helped them to understand the structure of Indonesian sentences, because it used a combination vocabulary in one sentence. This helped improve language acquisition skill in first language and second language, as the Wright and Baker said. Translanguaging is also efficient in building understanding because pre-existing knowledge in the basic for further learning, and there is also ease to transfer across language due to the existence of two languages that are interdependent. So the study conclusion is BIPA learning with the translanguaging strategy is require the teacher to understand the student first language, and this process can be carried out in individual classes or group classes with homogeneous learners. Also, translanguaging is carried out in structure and gradual, with reducing in every meeting to help make productive mastery more effective. And then need more detail but made more detailed research with more sample in implementing the translanguaging strategy so that the data is obtained accurately and represent the population of BIPA students. There is a 20 study to use preference for this study. This part will be the end of presentation. Thank you so much.